Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life.
Namaste, everyone. So, something very important has come out, so much so that I have altered or interrupted the pre-planned flow of my podcasts to get to something that's very topical and very important. New guidelines have just come out about getting off benzodiazepines. Now, I know that for some of my dedicated listeners, this may not apply to you, but you may know someone who's working on getting off benzodiazepines. So make sure you spread this one out widely and let many people know about this podcast because we need to get this important information to the people who can benefit from it. And a lot of people in the chronic illness community, a lot of people in the rare diseases community, a lot of people inevitably in the mental illness community, and even in the recovery community are dealing with getting off benzodiazepines. So let's get the word out. Well, I've been using this word benzodiazepines. What are benzodiazepines? They're colloquially known as benzos, and they are termed as the minor tranquilizers. That's comparing them with the big antipsychotics that are designated as the major tranquilizers. But they are central nervous system depressants or downers. They're called benzodiazepines because, hey, Ayurveda students and herbology students, they have a benzene ring. We got familiar with benzene rings, and that is fused with a diazepine ring. So although they're colloquially known as benzos, it is much more accurate to say benzodiazepines. This is something that came out when I was a kid. Librium, the first benzodiazepine, was available by 1960, Librium. And then 3 years later, in 1963, came Valium. So when I was a girl in England, you were seeing massive amounts of suburban housewives. And back then, suburban housewives didn't have jobs. They were stay-at-home mothers. They had to stay at home, wait till their husband got home on the commuter train. They made supper. They arranged the flowers. They did the shopping. They led fundamentally boring, empty, and meaningless lives in so many ways. And the lack of the meaning in their life was being medicated by Librium and Valium. That's what I think about it. Came out with a big fanfare of here are these things have no side effects and specifically no rebound anxiety. So they were used for anxiety disorders, people suffering from empty and meaningless lives, insomnia, and also for seizures. By the way, this talk doesn't really apply to you should you be having a benzodiazepine prescription for seizures, because you really don't want to have seizures. Just talk to your doctor about getting a different medicine. Um, Before the SSRIs became the thing, before Prozac, um, which came out in the 70s, everyone that had mental illness problems, anxiety problems, and so on was definitely taking benzodiazepines. Um, so what are the most commonly prescribed benzodiazepines? We're talking about Xanax, alprazolam, Klonopin, which is clonazepam, Tranxene, which is clorazepate. Then we are talking about diazepam, Valium. It has a couple other trade names too, Diastat and Valtoco. Even used for alcohol withdrawal. So that's how come people in the recovery community could be involved with that. Ativan, which is lorazepam, Ristaril, temazepam, and Halcyon, which is triazolam. So those are some of the common benzodiazepines we're talking about. How do they work? They are, as we said, central nervous system depressants, and they work on a very important neurotransmitter. They calm you down, mellow you out neurotransmitter GABA, which is gamma amino butyric acid, and they work at the GABA A receptor. So that's how they're having sedative and sleep-inducing and anti-anxiety, anti-convulsant properties, and also helping to relax our muscles, which is where people in the rare diseases community, in the EDS community, in the fibromyalgia community, chronic pain community could be as suffering from the use of these medicines. Why do you need to get off benzodiazepines? Some of the things that regularly using benzodiazepines can cause include memory loss and impaired thinking. So the memory loss has caused a huge scare because there's some evidence that benzodiazepines could be contributing to the development of Alzheimer or other forms of dementia. So that's why the Surgeon General in Colorado ordered people not to be on long-term benzodiazepines, and a lot of people were taken off suddenly. More of that anon. Uh, Regular use of benzodiazepines can, in fact, lead to anxiety and depression. That's how you become dependent on them because they are doing the job that your body should be doing, and that stops your body doing it. So they were touted as no rebound anxiety. Well, at one point when I was quite young, I required or was given a large shot of a benzodiazepine because I was being a little hypomanic or something. Afterwards, I experienced an anxiety I had never felt before, unimaginable anxiety. And as a junior doctor or medical student, not sure, quite remember which I was at that point, I was like, this is rebound anxiety and it's absolutely terrible. And I will never take this thing ever again in my life because everything I heard about it, and we're talking early 70s that I was learning about it, everything I heard about it is a lie. You can also get irritability, paranoia, aggression, can change your personality. You can feel weak, lethargic, and lose your motivation. You can feel drowsy, sleepy, and fatigued. Although it is a medicine for insomnia, you are not getting the proper REM sleep that you should be getting, so you're still fatigued. If you get off it, of course, you'll experience terrible difficulty sleeping and disturbing dreams. Um, and terrible withdrawal symptoms. We'll get to that in just a minute. Um, there is some evidence that long-term heavy use of benzodiazepines could be a risk factor for epilepsy, for stroke, and for brain tumors. Let's take a few moments just to mention the Z drugs. The Z drugs, azolpidem, zopiclone, and zalopon. Zaleplon. And they are known as non-benzodiazepine drugs that are used to treat insomnia, but here's the problem with them. They bind to the same binding site as benzodiazepines. Um, they are still exerting their effect through our GABA system. So they're not a good alternative to benzodiazepines. They're sort of almost as bad as benzodiazepines, and don't get caught up in them either. So getting off benzodiazepines is difficult and it can be dangerous. I had a relative who was caught up in the sudden stop of long-term benzodiazepine prescriptions in Colorado when that happened. My relative, when their benzodiazepines were stopped, but they were shaking so they could hardly lift a cup to their lips. Their tea was like spilling everywhere. They could not sleep at all. And they were, in fact, in danger because they were older. They were in danger of a seizure, and they should never have been put through just being at home and having that sudden withdrawal. They should at least have been in a proper center where they could be looked after. So getting off is difficult and it can be very, very dangerous. That's what I realized going through this with my relative. Generally, nowadays, you are not supposed to use benzodiazepines for more than 4 weeks because it is so risky. Falls, vehicle crashes, cognitive impairment, overdose. But basically, at least a quarter of everyone who's is prescribed a benzodiazepine is given a supply that goes beyond, often far beyond those 120 days. And doctors got in that habit of writing that up. Habits of doctors are hard to change. A lot of people are given long-term benzodiazepines when they could have been managed with other interventions. Of course, from an Ayurvedic standpoint, we always wish we could have gotten to that person first when they were still able to be helped by milder things. Because, as we'll talk in a moment, it's hard to replace benzodiazepines with a herb once your brain has been altered by benzodiazepines. So Ayurveda has always asked for a very long, slow taper, not only of benzodiazepines, but of any drug, particularly any drug that acts on your central nervous system. And we are finally starting to see Western medicine catch up with what we've always wanted and have some other options other than, well, then crush up your pill or go to a compounding pharmacy or some of the options we had to suggest to people before. Tapering can take more than a year. Tapering can take more than a year. It is a long, slow, agonizing process. It may be a 2 steps forward and 1 step back process because life throws stuff at us. It is no easy joke. Tapering can take more than a year. And apropos of what my relative went through, benzodiazepines should never be abruptly stopped in a patient who's likely to be physically dependent on the medication and at risk for these horrible withdrawal symptoms. At the same time, particularly people that are older, You really don't want to stay on benzodiazepines if you're an older adult because you are compounding your risk of memory loss, of falls, all kinds of things that are dangerous for older adults. There are all kinds of potential withdrawal symptoms, and the problem is that withdrawal symptoms can last for months and years after stopping. This is what people in the Lyme community, in the chronic disease community, in the rare diseases community have been saying over and over and over that they are still months and years later suffering from the withdrawal symptoms from the benzodiazepines. So ask for a very slow taper for yourself or for your relative. Finally, what we've been wanting to accomplish all along, micro tapering, can now be done because you can get liquid benzodiazepine formulations. So you can use the liquid formulation for the micro tapering. If you do have someone you live with or someone that can help you, you might need support to follow through with your micro taper. You might need someone else to have that liquid benzodiazepine and dose it out to you because of the power of that drug and the unpleasantness of the side effect may make you want to get back into it. And we really don't want you to get back into it. Your brain needs time. The gamma aminobutyric acid receptors, the GABA receptors in your brain, are going to take a long while to get back to where they should be. This is kind of the basis of my rule I've had for many, many years. I'm not taking anything that crosses the blood-brain barrier unless it's anesthesia for a surgery I have to have. I'm not taking anything as a daily prescription that crosses the blood-brain barrier because I don't want to go through this messing with my receptors, messing with my neurotransmitters. Because the GABA receptors have not returned to homeostasis, that is why you're not going to get the expected results from trying to replace your benzodiazepine with our rest well tincture, teas, herbs, other things that you would normally work. So the things that are going to work for people that haven't had their GABA receptors messed with by benzodiazepines, unfortunately, it could take a long while before you're in a condition where they're going to work for you. So it's it's a very difficult situation, but try to give those receptors time to recover. Don't use alcohol during this recovery period. Don't use alcohol at all. Don't use sedatives at all. And don't replace the actual benzodiazepines with the Z drugs. Remember the zolpidem, zopiclone, and zaleplon. Don't replace it with the Z drugs because then your brain's receptors are never going to come back to normal. We're going to have to work with other kinds of non-pharmaceutical methods as well as using the herbs. We're going to have to work with yoga nidra tape, going to have to work with breathing, going to have to work with other forms of yoga, we're going to have to work with oiling your feet, all kinds of methods of calming your vata, and it's still, I'm sorry, it's still going to be an uphill battle. And as patients have shared with me, I was getting along and then this happened. my father died, which God forbid, or whatever it is. This thing happened and I got a setback. That's what I'm saying. Charuk actually talks about the 2 steps forward, 1 step back method of getting off of the bad habits. That may be the way it goes, but keep making sure it's not 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward or 3 steps back. Keep slowly, slowly, slowly trying to make progress. Remember, it easily can take a year to get off the benzodiazepine. You may be having symptoms from that withdrawal even years later. This is the consensus of large groups of patients who have been through this. You are not alone. The fact that you can't change out your benzodiazepines for Ayurvedic herbs and have the herbs work doesn't mean Ayurveda doesn't work. It means I'm so sorry your brain got so messed with. Let's pull out all the stops on every possible level to help your brain recover. But in the meantime, it's worth it to get off of these because of their really bad long-term effects. It's especially worth it if you're older, because if an elderly person is basically one fall away from losing their quality of life, and also an elderly person is more in danger of getting muddled or having their memory be slower. So keep going. Just keep going. As always, be kind to yourself. Be patient with yourself. Be kind and patient with your practitioner. It's actually not their fault, and it's not the fault of the medicines that your receptors, your GABA receptors, are taking long to recover. They simply are going to take a long while to recover. So it is a tough process. You're not alone. Many, many people are going through this. We in the Ayurveda community want to be here to support you to get off of these poisons that were given to you in your good faith. And doctors initially were giving these amazing drugs in good faith. So here we are. I hope this is helpful. Like I said, make sure you pass this on, let everyone know about this podcast, because we need to get this information to the people that need it. Namaste.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey.
Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivadano